began to ask me to do more of them. So that's exactly what I did. And little by little, year by year, more and more, I got the opportunity, and it was really a golden, glorious, rich opportunity to not only read these books, because I had to read them 3 times to broadcast them. First, I had to read them just to know what was there and make necessary markings in the margins as to how I would read them. And then the second was the actual recording session. And then the third would be the checking what I had read, and if there were mistakes, such as fumbles in the pronunciation or incorrect pronunciation, or pauses which were too long, or words which were kind of melded together and you couldn't tell the difference between two. So all these things had to be checked carefully. So I got an opportunity to read those books at least 3 times. And of course later on I would read them more, but at least 3 times I read them, and so I felt that that was such an excellent opportunity for me to get to know the books more and more. And then later on, as years passed, many devotees began telling me how they were spending literally their whole mornings listening to Srila Prabhupada's books. Many of them did not have time to actually read them, so they were listening to them in their cars. People had to drive to work 50 miles one way, 50 another way. So therefore the books were beginning to be read through the ears, so to speak. And Srila Prabhupada had mentioned over and over again that hearing is an excellent, if not the most beneficial and easy way to absorb and assimilate the Vedic teachings. So I can't thank Srila Prabhupada enough for that opportunity that he gave me. If he had not written those books, I would still be standing around with my mouth wide open trying to say something useful. But he gave me something useful and purposeful and valuable to say, which was his books. And as I travel around from temple to temple, so many persons who were very young, they were 5 and 6 and 7 years old when these tapes came out, and now they're in their 30s and 40s, and now they have their own children, and they tell me how they spent so many years just going to bed listening to them, and waking up listening to them, and doing so many things, riding on their bikes or skateboards or whatever, listening to them. So it gave me a great sense of pleasure, a great sense of satisfaction to be able to do this. And without Srila Prabhupada's mercy, it would never have gotten done. So I can't thank Srila Prabhupada really enough. And it's such an easy way to learn the books. I myself, whenever I eat, I always listen to either the Chaitanya Charitamrita or the Krishna book, and it's a nice way to learn the book and get to know it more familiarly and be able to use some of the information for not only general preaching on a one-on-one, but also preaching in a general assembly. So that's all I would like to say on this. I thank you all for giving me your support. Many of you have been listening to these audio books for many, many years and have been giving me your support and your encouragement and enthusiasm. So I can't thank you all enough. It gives me great pleasure and always a privilege to share them with you. And I give you full right to copy them and share them with your family. I don't feel any loss. I feel a gain when you do that. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Right. Thank you, Maharaj. We'd like to ask Mother Sujana. Sujana Dasi. Thank you. Again, you can sit on the Vyasasana, in a chair, stand, whatever you feel most comfortable doing.
I had the extreme good fortune of being in Vrindavan in 1977 when Srila Prabhupada left the planet. And because of that, this is always an extremely emotional day for me, and it's hard for me to speak nicely. I usually just kind of get up here and blubber and cry. But this year I decided to sort of discipline myself a little bit, and I actually tried to write something in honor of my spiritual master. So I'll begin with that. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachadeshatarine. Dear Srila Prabhupada, my glorious spiritual master, I offer my most humble obeisances again and again in the sacred dust of your lotus feet. Celebrating your disappearance from this world is always bittersweet. Your departure was glorious, and you showed us by example that in life or death, the pure devotee is equipoised and always dependent on Krishna. But at the same time, your departure left us, your disciples still in the infancy of our Krishna consciousness, feeling stunned and confused, overwhelmed with bereavement. Flustered and floundering, we struggled to make sense of these new circumstances, as without you at the helm, everything seemed to be off-kilter. Until we realized that, in fact, you were still at the helm, still guiding the ship, and always guiding the ship. Srila Prabhupada, through the association that you gave us, through the detailed Bhaktivedanta purports that you left us, through this International Society for Krishna Consciousness that you created for us, and through your love for us, which we feel in our hearts every day, we know now that in truth, you have never left us. So today I would like to take advantage of this auspicious occasion to renew my vows as your disciple, to always follow your instructions, to chant at least 16 rounds daily, to follow the 4 regulative principles, to engage always in devotional service, and to take every opportunity, as you did, to share this Krishna consciousness with others. By engaging in this way, I will understand that you have never left me, Srila Prabhupada, and I will never leave you. Always praying for your mercy upon this fallen soul, I beg to remain your eternal servant. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Thank you, Mataji. We'd like to ask Dhananjay Prabhu to speak next. Did Balai come in yet? No? Okay. So then the next lady will be Kriya Shakti after Dhananjaya.
Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastachad Isatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, some memories are flooding into my brain, especially to do with Sri Vrindavan Dham. and especially the Krishna Balaram Mandir, because Prabhupada himself said many times that this place is my home. And Prabhupada also chose to leave, to go back home to his eternal home from Sri Vrindavan Dham. And some or another, this fallen Scotsman got the opportunity to do service, quite a lot of service actually, and especially in 1974-75 in Vrindavan. Some or another, he chose this fallen soul to become the temple president of the Krishna Balaram Mandir. This appointment was made in Sri Mayapur Dham in October 1974. And I was visiting Srila Prabhupada with a whole different idea, a whole different plan. I wanted to open a temple in Sri Lanka, in Colombo. But Prabhupada had a different plan for me, which amazingly was also approved by a quorum of GBC men. And he appointed me as the temple president. But when the GBC left the room and I was sitting alone with Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada said, "So do you like this plan?" And I said, "Well, I mean, you want me to do this, and I feel I have to follow your instruction." And I tried to be a little philosophical. I said, just like you take a mango, and a mango, whether you bite on the top of the mango or the bottom of the mango, tastes just as sweet. So I'm prepared to do this. He said, okay, on one condition. You don't tell Harikesh. He said, Harikesh is sitting in Vrindavan thinking he's the temple president. And I don't want to upset him. So you please don't tell him that you've just been appointed the temple president by me and by the quorum of the GBC. So I went to Vrindavan, and I was approached by Harikesh, and he asked me, "What are you doing here?" And Prabhupada had said, you can make up a story that you're looking for land with sweet water because we're keeping a herd of cows in a very small area, a very contained area, but they should have their own field to graze, to eat fresh grass, and to drink fresh water. So this is what I told him. And he said, "Is there any other reason why you're here?" "Oh, no. No other reason." So somehow or another, I was in Vrindavan at the time when the construction work was still going on. The deities were not installed. Of course, we all know the deities were installed on Ram Navami, 1975. And during that time, other things had happened, that Harikesh had to leave that service in Vrindavan, so he wasn't embarrassed by the fact that I had been appointed as the internal president. Some of the GBC men in the Mayapur festival of 75 objected that Prabhupada was establishing a householder in Vrindavan with such an important service. So they wanted a sannyasi to also be involved. So Prabhupada had chosen this sannyasi called Akshayananda Swami. He was from New Zealand, and he was a personal friend of mine because he joined when I was the temple president in Amsterdam. I'm talking like this because I was always some or another involved in management under the supervision of Srila Prabhupada. So I'm just sharing you some of these sort of management responsibilities and opportunities too. He asked me when he came to Vrindavan before the opening of the temple, "Have you seen the deities?" And I said, "No, Prabhupada." He said, "Oh, they're in the back room of my house. Please go there and have a look." So I went into, with his permission, into the back room, and saw those deities that were commissioned, I think jointly by Bharadwaj and Jamuna from this Murtiwala, Pandey Murtiwala in Jaipur. So he said, what do you think? I said, oh, I'm sure the pujaris will be very, very happy with these deities because there's no marble clothing, no marble crowns, no marble jewelry. Because in those days, that's what we were familiar with, especially with Radha Landaneshwara. They came fully dressed and fully clothed with all paraphernalia. But these were smooth. So I said the pujaris will love dressing those deities. Then I said, for some reason, unknown reason, oh, by the way, some devotees have been asking me that along with Krishna Balaram, who will be the principal deities, we're installing deities of Radha and Krishna. Have you thought of a name for them? He looked at me and he said, no. Can you think of a name? And on the spot I said, what about Radha Shyam Sundar? He said, yes. From now on they will be called Radha Shyam Sundar. That's one of the perks of being a manager. You get these opportunities that don't come around very often in one's life. So when the deities were installed, Prabhupada called me. He said, now we've got Gaur Nitai, Krishna Balaram, Radha Shyam Sundar, Vishaka Lalita. I want you to start teaching all the guests and all the devotees that come to chant a new mantra. And the mantra goes like this. Nitai Gaur, Radhe Shyam, Jaya Krishna Balaram. And I was surprised. And I said, why have you decided this? Well, he said, we have Gaur Nitai, we have Radha Krishna, we have Krishna Balaram. So we're glorifying all the deities on all the three altars. And also, on top of that, those Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam Babas living behind our international guest house will think that we're chanting their mantra. Of course, he said that mantra is bogus. And I'm sure you know what that mantra is. So that's official. Officially Prabhupada, only in Vrindavan, not in other temples, because that temple is quite unique to chant. And you please repeat after me. Nitai Gaur, Radhe Shyam, Jaya Krishna Balaram. And when Prabhupada heard this is very pleasing to his ears. So when you next go to Vrindavan and you stand in front of the deities and those three altars, remember this mantra and please chant it.
Did they ever chant that in the temple?
Yes, yes. Many, many devotees chanted. Nitai Gaur Radhe Shyam, Jaya Krishna Balaram. 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 Do you want to hear a couple more stories? How many of you heard of the bell story? You've heard. You've heard also. So there's only two of you in the room. So you've heard also. Well, I was acting as the temple president, as the internal president. Akshayananda was out making life members as the external president. And we used to have a bell that hung in the darshan mandap right in front of Krishna Balaram's altar. And that was rung during the arti ceremonies. But someone had very enthusiastically rung the bell so hard that it became loose from where it was, and it crashed into the marble. And you can even today still see the dent of that, and that bell smashed into pieces. So I thought maybe it's time to get a new bell. So I did. I purchased a bell in Loy Bazaar for 3,000 rupees. And I was very proud of that bell. And I wanted Prabhupada to see it and to hear it. So I had arranged for some workers to bring the bell suspended on a bamboo pole into Prabhupada's room. So Prabhupada said, let me hear the bell. So we rung the bell, And he said, very nice sound. He said, hang it in the tree in the courtyard. Do you remember the original tree that was there? What kind of tree was that? It was a tamal tree. So I was kind of thinking, this is quite a big bell, and it's quite heavy. It's about maybe 30, 40 kilos. I said, Prabhupada, if we hang it in the tree, because the bell is so heavy, it will break the branch that it's hanging from. Prabhupada said, no, hang it from the tree. I said, Prabhupada, I think that's a really bad idea. And he said, why? And I said, well, because I'm still sticking to my feeling that this will damage the tree. And he said, what is your suggestion? I said, well, I want to hang it above the main entrance. And there's like already a little belfry. It seems that it was already made for a bell. And we can ring it, and more people will hear it. It won't just be in the darshan mandap. It'll be at the very front of the temple. So then he looked at me, and he said, you can hang that bell any damn place you want, but I want it hung in the tree. I didn't hang it in the tree. I hang it from that belfry. And so then Prabhupada called and he said, now this bell is in more of a public area for the outside people. And he said, this is in 1975. And he said, many of the local Brijbasis, they're so poor, they can't afford to buy a wristwatch. So they don't know the time. So this bell should be rung on the hour, every hour, 24/7, along with during the Aarti ceremony. And he said, this will also inform us if the bell is not ringing on the hour, we'll know that the person in charge of ringing the bell is sleeping. Then you have to go and ring the bell. And I thought, oh boy, what have I let myself into? This is when you challenge the spiritual master scenario, he always has the upper hand. So anyway, we put the rope on the bell, we hung the bell and everything, and it was being rung on the hour, every hour. It was rung during the Aarti ceremonies. But then I was sleeping with Upendra, who was Prabhupada's servant at the time, in a room in the internal area of the guest house, the Krishna Balaram guest house. And at like about 1 o'clock in the morning, I hear this banging on the door, and it's Brahmananda. Brahmananda's Prabhupada's secretary. And I always kind of describe it like, you know these cartoons where someone's banging on a door and the door is bending, you know, miraculously as it's being pounded. That's what it felt like, because I was in deep sleep. So I woke up, and Brahmananda was there standing. I opened the door, and I said, what's the problem? Because I was thinking there was some major emergency. Prabhupada wants to see you. Do I have time to change into my dhoti? Because I was just wearing a gamcha. I said, no, come in your gamcha. So I went down the stairs into Prabhupada's house upstairs where he had his bedroom, and there he was, peacefully translating at the light of a table lamp. And he looked up at me. And I was waiting to hear some horrible, horrible news. And he looked at me with a side glance. He said, you did not hear? And I went, I did not hear what? The bell. No one rang the bell at 1 o'clock. Go and ring the bell. So I had to go and wake up the chokidar, the night guard, and get on his case. So then I thought, all right, now this has been taken care of. We got a better person, more alert. We were coming back from a morning walk, because every morning, of course, Prabhupada would go for a morning walk on Bhaktivedanta Swami Marg, up to Ramanreti, up to Chatikara. So we were coming back, and as we were coming back, because it's not just me, there was like about 30 devotees, Tamal Krishna was there, Hridayananda, Satsvarup, you know, so many big devotees were on that morning walk. And as we entered the main gate, the guard was standing there ringing the bell, boom, boom, for 7 o'clock, boom, then nothing. And what had happened was, because it was made of jute rope, and there was a very sharp edge to one part of the roof, it was rubbing up against, and the rope had actually broken. And so now here was the man who wanted to ring the bell but couldn't, because all this rope was just on the floor. And he looked at me, and with great disgust, he said, "No brain, simply buffalo stool." Right in front of all these assembled Vaishnavas. So that's the other side of managing, that when you get it wrong, you really get it wrong. And people were just, all the devotees were laughing like anything. So during that morning walk, there was a very kind of heated conversation about the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. That's what Prabhupada was working on at that time. And about the moon. Now, according to Ayurvedic calculations, according to Vedic calculations, the moon is further away from the earth than the sun. So he made this amazing statement. And he said this to Srila Damodar, who was a brahmachari at the time, but he was a very intelligent scientist. And they were starting up the Bhaktivedanta Institute at that time also. So he said, you should inform those so-called scientists that if anyone has gone to the moon, they first of all must pass beyond the sun. He said the moon is twice as far from the earth and twice as big as the sun. So that was quite controversial. And he said that light that you see, the moonshine, and you may have experienced when it's a full moon, that the atmosphere cools down, especially in India, when you're living in India in the middle of the summer, and there's a full moon coming up, then the atmosphere becomes cooled. He said that there's kusha grass, which is burning on the surface of the moon, but it's a cooling heat. It's not a warming heat. He said it's not that it's the sunlight of the sun. It's not light from the sun that's illuminating the moon, but the moon is self-luminous. So those were quite amazing experiences with Srila Prabhupada in Vrindavan. But I think probably my time is up. I don't know how much time we have. But thank you all for listening so intently. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Dhananjay Prabhu. Kriya Shakti, Mataji.